This is where it was at. It's special when a night like Thelonious would come up and then have the piano there for the play. The piano was tuned and everything was top notch, where the music would come out and be like it was supposed to be. And the man was very artistic and very particular about everything that he liked and playing the music and whatnot, and the people that came there to listen to it.
You talking about Monk?
I'm talking about Monk now.
Tell me when you first met Monk.
I met Monk in the early part of 41. 118th Street between 7th and St. Nicholas Avenue, on your left-hand side, Men's Playhouse.
His melodies were beautiful. His chords were unusual. His colors, his rhythmic sense, you know, and the spiritual feeling in the music. You know, when you heard his music, it just carried you away.
The most difficult thing about Monk in the studio was a combination of his perfectionism and his really basic, I think, inability to understand what the hell was supposed to be so difficult about his music. You know, the attitude that he understood it, why couldn't you?
A lot of things that we do in common one to another. And we all do some of the usual things, you know. We use some of the usual phrases. Monk wasn't like that, you know. So Monk was like a real free spirit who said, I'm gonna play this way. This is what I want. And he played stuff that nobody else ever played. He was a rebellious spirit, and probably one of the few people who really stuck to their gun and got what he wanted out of what he wanted to do. You know, there's very few people who make it doing what they want to do. Monk went through a period of not making it, but he still was Monk. When he made it, he still was Monk.
He epitomizes what a jazz musician is supposed to be. He has a style which is instantly identifiable, whether it's in composition, whether it's in his playing, or whether it's someone playing along the lines of Thelonious Monk. It's a very personal approach to jazz.
Everyone treated Thelonious special. I knew there was something special about this guy because he didn't quite act like all my uncles or his friends, or, you know, and everybody felt very happy. He elicited a real good feeling from everybody in the family all the time. You know, he was big on, like, anytime anybody in the family had a birthday, Thelonious was there to play Happy Birthday, which is an extraordinary event to hear him play Happy Birthday. Believe me, it was not the traditional voicings. But, you know, for a long time, I didn't really know what it was, per se. You know, I would listen to him play the piano, and I knew that he didn't play like everybody. In fact, Now, in retrospect, as I get older, I would have to say there was certainly a point when I was very young where I was rather distressed that it didn't seem like Dad was doing what everybody else who was a world-famous entertainer was doing. You know, it was like he was into his own thing.
It was a message. He had a way of saying to the piano and giving you a message. You know, every note was clear, precise, at the same time a tremendous sense of swing. And in addition to all of that, he showed me that all the values of our music are modern, like stride piano, for example.
Monk was a stride pianist all of his life, and he would write even a very complicated piece of music, and he would play somewhere along the line stride piano, because that was the way he heard things and the way he organized things.
Harlem stride piano was this incredible period around the 20s and 30s, you know, and 40s also, of the great, great pianists, such as James P. Johnson, Lucky Roberts, Willie Lyon Smith, and many others. And they would play a lot of rent parties, you know, and the piano became like a total orchestra, and they would play for dancing. And James P. Johnson, ironically, he lived in San Juan Hill in the same area as Monk, you know. And James P. was one of our really master pianists. And they all went into stride, and stride was just a wonderful way for pianists to swing. I like stride.
I think it's easier to understand Thelonious if you realize that in many ways he was himself a tremendously traditional artist. He had a great awareness of the past in jazz. Well, you know, the area that he grew up in the West 60s in New York was an area that James P. Johnson was living in at that time, and apparently James P. was a childhood hero of his. I mean, I recall a recording session when I did the first solo album I did with Monk. We were standing in the control room listening to the playback of an improvised blues that he had done, and he turned around and said to me, "Gee, I sound just like James P. Johnson."
And for me, Thelonious was wonderful because he put the traditional and modern and put it together. So there was no separation, you know. And you know what a beautiful blues called functional? I'm going to play this for you and use a little bit of stride.
first moved there was 1922, summer, right? So there were houses on both sides of 63rd Street. In fact, all the way up, like where they have Lincoln Center now, there were houses on both sides of the street all the way up to Central Park West. And most people were from the West Indies, and we were about the only Americans when we first moved over here. And since our name was Monk, they thought we were West Indian too. And then they found out that we weren't, you know.
And his mother was a Jehovah's Witness, and she was very, very close to a number of the ladies in the community, and Thelonious was very, very close to his mother. And although she came from Carolina, I think a lot of her influences in later life, the influences that affected Thelonious, because he came here when he was 3, came from those friends that his mother had, who were from, whose origins were in the various islands in the Caribbean.
Mostly West Indians, you find, the children have to play something or do something. So most of them either play the piano or the violin. So in that atmosphere, my mother said I had to take piano, and Thelonious, he didn't want to play the violin, so he had to play the trumpet. So I took piano lessons, he took trumpet lessons. But they found out he used to have bronchial trouble, you know, cold in the chest so much. And the music teacher told my mother that he shouldn't play the trumpet because it was affecting, you know, his blowing. And he got interested in the piano. So my brother would start playing, and he found out he could pick up any tune that came along, you know, without the music. So my mother said that if he was going to play, he should learn how to play the right way. So the teacher who was teaching me, which I didn't like piano lessons, he started teaching my brother in my place, so he took lessons there.
There was a strong tradition of education. There was a strong tradition of religion involved in those things. There was a strong structure for respect and authority for elders and those kind of things, and those values were very, very important to Thelonious, and I think it had an overall influence on the way he went about his job in his music, which was very workmanlike fashion.